On today's show, we have Sean McEvoy on the quarterback whisperer. And we talk to him about the top prospects in the state of Georgia at the quarterback position and how their recruitment is going with college football recruiting. Also, too, we throw out a hypothetical scenario to him. If Jalen Hurts were to transfer to Georgia Tech, what would that mean for the Georgia Tech program? Welcome back to the Fan Show. I'm Alex Berger, and today we're going to have Sean McEvoy on. Always fun to have Sean on. Always fun to pick his brain about the quarterback position because it is the most interesting and hardest position to play in all of sports. And people like me and or someone that barely knows football, they're all about the quarterback position. They're all about a lot of times criticizing the quarterback, but Sean brings a really cool and unique perspective to the show, and I'm definitely grateful to have him on. I'm Alex Berger, and before we bring Sean on, I want to talk about this. Now we're trying to transition the show because mainly so far we've just talked about football, and that's fun, and I can talk about football all day, but football season is coming to an end, sadly. Sadly, I know, just tears of distraught, and what am I going to do for the next 8 months? Yeah, but there are other sports out there, and the Fan Show is going to cover them and talk about them and bring them to light. And one of the sports that is coming up this fall is, not this fall, excuse me. I'm still in that football mindset. I'm trying to get that out and trying to think spring sports, spring winter sports. Like last podcast, we had Kyle Sandy from sandyspiel.com. Talk about all about college basketball, and that was a fun conversation. But moving on, during the spring and into the summer, when it's the dog days of summer, you have baseball season, and this town has the Atlanta Braves, which is the last pro franchise to win a major championship, unfortunately, win a World Series. And one of the people that contributed to that World Series was the all-time legend of a Brave who spent his whole career with the Atlanta Braves, who is one of my best, well, he's my best friend's favorite player. He's Brandon Whitney's favorite player. And that is the all-time great and now the Hall of Famer, or soon to be inducted into Cooperstown, Chipper Jones. And it doesn't surprise me that Chipper Jones is going into the Hall of Fame. He was a switch hitter as beginning of his career, and that's what he was known for. That he had that talent of he could hit from both sides of the plate. And that is a really advantage in baseball, that you can be have that advantage to your game, that you can hit lefty, hit righty, and it doesn't really matter. And and that makes the manager's job a whole lot easier, that you have a guy that can do that, because some pitchers are good against left-handers, some pitchers are good against right-handers, but you probably already know that already. But so it's a talented Chipper, and Chipper spent his whole career with the Atlanta Braves, and happy to see him do that. I think the sad part about that was the Braves had all that talent back in the 90s and only won one championship. But obviously, some of those Yankee teams you weren't going to be able to compete with because they were on another level. But at the same time, you would at least like to see another championship here in the ATL. But unfortunately, that did not happen. But the thing I'm most impressed about Chipper, though, was the end of his career, and it seemed like no matter where the wind blew, that he always had some sort of injury. He always had an injury that would a lot of times towards the end of seasons just take him out for the whole season, which sucked. But that's life when you're an athlete playing over 20 years of ball. And but the thing I was most impressed with him was his leadership that he brought to the Atlanta Braves, because what ends up happening is sometimes you don't listen to the manager, but Chipper was a guy that could relate to players, who understood what players were going through. Also, he understood the coaching side to the game, so I feel like that also was a big advantage for him, and I feel like that's where he did a lot of his good work, was training young guys like Freddie Freeman and Jeff Francoeur. Even though Jeff Francoeur's career didn't work out, and even be on the same team with Jason Hayward. So the leadership aspect that he brought from being a player, sort of coach, I felt like gave the Braves a really good advantage and helped develop young guys, young players' careers like Freeman and Hayward and Jeff Francoeur. So I feel like that's his biggest contributing factor to the Atlanta Braves, even though that's one of many. But I'm glad to see a player like that leave a lasting legacy, and he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. So congratulations to Chipper Jones for getting inducted into Cooperstown. You deserved it. Now here is me and Sean's conversation.
Well, we want to welcome again back to the Fan Show. He's starting to become one of our regulars, Sean McEvoy, who is a private quarterback trainer. He's also had coaching experience, coaching high school football, and love to just pick his brain about football and college football and even the NFL, things that are going on, because it'll be Super Bowl weekend before you know it, just a week away. But Sean, how are you doing today, man?
Doing great, Alex. Good to talk to you, man.
Good to talk to you too. And we were recording this on a Thursday, but this is going to be our Friday and weekend show. So, Sean, I just want to just start off with a scenario, and just stay with me for a second, because this might be a little bit. Might go to a little bit of a weird place, but I just want to get your opinion on, because I saw on social media that I saw a picture of Jalen Hurts, and it said if Jalen Hurts transfers, where do you think he would go? And it was a multiple choice type thing, and like the first school was Texas, and I think like Florida Atlantic or something. I forget the other a couple schools, but Georgia Tech was on there. And I just want to run with this scenario just for a second. Let's say that actually happens, that because this is the free agency period, you could say, of college football. None of these guys are represented by agents anyway, but this is the time of year where guys consider going to different schools and they consider transferring. But let's just say Jalen transfers to Georgia Tech. I think he's going to be probably the best quarterback on that campus. But do you feel like that would be a good fit for Jalen? I think it would be a home run hit for Georgia Tech because he's the type of guy that fits that offense really well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, the excitement level at Georgia Tech would just be off the charts if that were to happen. It's funny. I had this conversation myself with some friends over the last few days, and, whether or not he would be a great fit is going to be the big question mark, right? Because obviously athletically, what he's able to do at that quarterback position certainly fits what Georgia Tech wants. Being able to run that offense effectively, that's a whole nother question, right? Now, where he would benefit is, remember, he started as a freshman. He hasn't redshirted yet. So he's going to lose the year of eligibility in theory, but that would just be his redshirt year. Same thing that, Jacob Eason is going to do at Washington, right? So he, in theory, would have a year, if he were to go to Georgia Tech, sit out, spend that entire year learning the offense, right? Learning the reads, learning the formations, because trust me, it's going to be night and day different than anything he's done before. Running that multiple option scheme at Georgia Tech, the decision making is so key. So obviously every time Jalen Hurts ends up with the ball in his hands, you're going to feel like that's a good thing. But where that offense gets successful is it being run effectively and the right decisions being made. So that I don't know that I could predict how well he would be able to execute that offense, but man, just from an athletic standpoint, certainly. And honestly, it's one of the few big time Division I programs that I could see him ending up at, right? Because anywhere else you would go, well, I mean, I don't know about realistically, but the question that I was asking a couple of days ago was, who wants Jalen Hurts? And not in a negative way, but he's still going to be the same guy, right? The guy who doesn't really throw well enough to be successful at the big time Division I schools. I think the same things he ran into, in the toughest games of the season last year against Clemson and in the first half this year against Georgia, and where he needed to make plays and couldn't make it. I don't see that changing for him. So if you're a top 25 program, for instance, I think you probably would want a different quarterback than Jalen Hurts to run your offense. So Georgia Tech then is the outlier because they actually don't need a quarterback who throws well, right, to be successful. So definitely interesting, man. It's always funny to hear that scenario pop up.
Mm-hmm. Now let's kind of go to the other side of that. I'm just curious, as a coach, since you have coaching experience, what do you say to a kid to try to keep him in your program? Obviously, if Jalen stays, which I'm about, I want to say 89% sure that he's probably going to stay at Alabama. But say he was really on the fence. As a coach, what do you say to a kid who is considering possibly looking elsewhere, and what do you say to him to keep him in your program?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you have to, hopefully it's the same types of things that got him to come to your school in the first place, right? So in theory, nothing has changed. What we are as a program, if we're Alabama, what we can do for you from an alumni support standpoint and opportunities that you're going to have going forward, because you'll have been a multi-time national champion at Alabama and things of that nature. You just kind of go back to what you can provide, and the coaching staff that you have and how much we're going to grow and develop you. You're not going to find that anywhere else. All these things that you've been hanging your hat on in the initial recruiting process are the same things that you would go back to in this sense. Now, the next piece of that is finding out what, if we're using Jalen Hurts as the example, like what is his goal? Like what does he want to do? And then find out how you can get him there. Because if Jalen Hurts just wants to play in the NFL, well, then he wasn't going to do it as a quarterback anyway.
Right.
So, if that's his goal, it might even be easier for Alabama now. Hey, great, we can move you to, I don't know where he transitions to. Is he a safety? Is he a running back? But, he's obviously a darn good athlete. So you got to imagine there's opportunities for him to be successful and play. And so maybe that's the selling point, is we'll, not only were you our starter as a freshman and we believe in you and we love your leadership for this team, but, go look at our linebackers and defensive backs. They're all going to the NFL too. We can grow, develop, and get you to the next level unlike anybody else can. Mm-hmm. And you get, and you kind of find that middle ground, right? It's what does he want? And then how can he help, most benefit your team, kind of find that mutual agreement.
Mm-hmm. Since you worked with a lot of quarterbacks, and I know that you've worked with a lot of quarterbacks like this who are just gifted athletes, first of all.
Yeah.
And they can happen just to throw the ball down 80 yards on a dime. But obviously, like, this has been the big debate with quarterbacks in the past, and it's kind of still rears its ugly head a lot of times because what ends up happening, like with an NFL franchise, that if you take a guy that has quarterback experience, but he's also an athlete, and you can plug him in at free safety or corner or wide receiver or something like that, you usually do that because you want to stick with a guy who's patient in the pocket and can deliver the ball downfield and has great leadership qualities. But I'm just wondering, since you've had experience with a lot of these kids, what is it about these kids, since they can pretty much play any position, any skill position on the field, why do these kids want to play quarterback so badly?
I think it's the way that position is regarded in general. I think every kid who's 8 years old who's playing football out in their backyard wants to be the quarterback, right? They want to be Tom Brady, and so I don't think that changes as you become 12 and then 15 and then 18 and you grow up. I think your natural instinct or draw is to have that opportunity to go do that. Because, as you already said, they're superior athletes. What you find is that they're going to be, really talented at whatever position they desire to play. So I think a lot of these, especially obviously the dual threat type quarterbacks, these guys would have excelled at running back, wide receiver, defensive back, whatever they decided when they were 11 years old that they wanted to commit themselves to. My guess was they would have been very successful at that position as well. So I think just the initial desire gravitates to quarterback. And then, I think what happens a lot is those guys are the best athletes on their team when they're in youth football. And because of the way that sport is played at the youth level, I think you put your best player at quarterback. You want them to touch the ball as often as possible. And then I think a lot of times they just play quarterback for as long as they can. And sometimes it doesn't work out because they don't develop the footwork and the foundation, and they never develop the throwing mechanics and things that let them continue to excel. And that's when you see guys go back to wide receiver, defensive back, and what may be. But the ones who, it's not surprising, right? If you're a superior athlete, if you understand how your body functions and works, and then that's what these high-level athletes do, then they can make the necessary changes, in throwing the ball better or changing their arm path or, working off platform and all these difficult situations. They just naturally have an instinct that that so few have, and it allows them to, succeed at that level.
Well, since you went down this path, I have to ask you this question then. What was it about Tim Tebow that he couldn't get his throwing? I mean, he tried really hard to get his throwing motion down, but it seemed like since he would always put that ball down near his knee when he would do that wind up and throw the ball downfield, that really didn't seem to change too much when he got to the NFL. So
I think it did. I just think it was too late for him.
Gotcha.
And that's the other thing. Like any adjustments, any changes you make, you're always going to work against, years of muscle memory.
Which you naturally were good at doing.
Yeah. So, this is one of the things that I think plagues quarterbacks as well, and maybe keeps guys from continually getting better and developing, is once you're like really successful, at a younger age, then some players don't want to make that change, right? And so obviously Tim Tebow was good enough to be, in my opinion, the best college football player, in the last 20 years, and I'm certainly, ticking people off with that comment, but my point. He's one of those top college football players, Heisman Trophy winner, but never threw the ball really well, right? And that was fine. He did it enough to be successful until he got to a level where it wasn't good enough, right? Because now you're getting tighter windows and less time, and now when you're in this constrained environment, the things that you had kind of relied on before weren't good enough to get you over the top. Now, to Tebow's credit, he put that work in. Remember, it didn't quite work out with Denver, but by the time he got into Philly and then into New England, he was spending his off season and changed his throwing motion. And, you see some video, and he actually looked really good on air, right? He was getting his elbow back better on his backstroke and not letting that ball drop. And so he had a much more tighter and shorter arm path and was getting his arm through quickly and really had made those adjustments. The problem came when he was in a game and you don't have, the natural old instinct takes over. Does that make sense?
Right.
So he was throwing the ball really well on air during pregame, and then when the bullets start flying, for a bad analogy, he was reverting back to the old habits. And that's why we talk about in the quarterback development world in general, there's certainly something to be said for the earlier you can start to build sound mechanics and a sound foundation, the better chance you give yourself moving forward to continue to grow and develop on top of that.
I think it's interesting you brought up the point when the bullets start flying. He just kind of reverted back to what he was used to. And I saw that also with Johnny Manziel when he was at Cleveland, that you see him in college just pretty much doing whatever he wanted to, running around the field and throwing it 80 yards downfield for a touchdown. But you saw that at Cleveland, and he would just get destroyed.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just, like I said, there's things where, your natural ability gets you so far and you're able to work around limitations in your mechanics, if we're talking specifically in a quarterback. But then you get to a point where everybody's kind of at the same level athletically as you are, and that alone isn't making the difference.
Right.
And then that's when all of a sudden, you're those few, and it could be very few, but those few, restrictions or limitations or weaknesses that you have can be exposed pretty quickly.
Yeah, just to say, guys, how off scripted we are right now. I had no intention with this conversation with Sean talking about Tim Tebow or Johnny Manziel, but one of the topics I did want to talk to you about, Sean, since you're so close to this, is recruiting right now in the state of Georgia, because
Sure.
a lot of recruiting going on. Kirby Smart showing off his helicopter. I'm pretty sure Nick Saban's doing the same thing as well. But out of the quarterback class, outside of Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, because those are the two most talked about quarterbacks coming out of this class, who else stands out to you outside of those guys?
Yeah, I mean, there's two that just, once again, based here in the Atlanta area, Jaron Williams, who was at Central Gwinnett and is heading down now to Miami, and then Emory Jones, who was at Heard County and now is on his way to Florida. So they're another local, guys that were both involved in the Elite 11 process. We're in the initial 24 that got there, and I can't remember if Emory made the final 11 or not, but Jaron did. Jaron was one of the stars of Elite 11. Competing right there with Trevor and Justin, and a lot of guys maybe didn't know his name going in, certainly did after the fact. But just really good, talented, explosive, athletic type quarterbacks. Kind of late, kind of came up late in the recruiting process. I mean, really they all did. Even when you look back at Justin Fields, I mean, he was going into his junior year with very little, noise kind of around him, and then Jaron was locked into Kentucky for a long time, and Emory was, an Ohio State commit, or at least leaning that way for a long time. But all that stuff came late, as they're going into their junior years, and then both of them had really monster senior years and looked great in the off-season camps, and like I said, up through Elite 11, and they had really good senior seasons this year, leading their teams. There are a couple guys, I'm telling you, like I don't know what it is, with Georgia, over the last few years,
right.
But certainly some great quarterbacks, and I'd be remiss to not give Quincy Avery, a tip of the hat, because they both train with Quincy. So Quincy Avery's another involved with Elite 11, but a really good quarterback trainer in this area. Worked with Josh Dobbs, worked with Deshaun Watson, and Jaron and Emory are two guys that have been with him for a few years now. And you can see, I mean, it's, obviously like we were talking about earlier, it's more how great those two players are as phenomenal athletes. But then when you get the correct training and the correct direction, I expect those guys to really do some big things.
I'm looking at Emory Jones' profile, and he is Elite 11. Just a fact check on that. But
thank you.
I just have a question about Emory Jones because I just want to know, first of all, is he going to be a good fit in Dan Mullen's system? Because the type of quarterbacks you want in Dan Mullen's system are the guys that could play tight end, but just happen to play quarterback. Obviously, he has the height for that type of system, but they say on ESPN.com that he is 196, and I don't know if that's necessarily a place you want to be at to be involved in that type of system because you get hit a lot. But you know, and I know what a freshman year, spending a year in the weight room can do to your body. So, do you think he's going to be a good fit in what Florida and Dan Mullen are going to want to try to do?
The interesting thing is I'm not sure that Dan Mullen at Florida is going to be the Dan Mullen offense that you're used to, right? Because I think part of, first of all, great coaches are going to adapt to the talent they have and maximize their talent. Now, obviously, you have a foundation that you've been, working with for years and years and years, but there's an argument to be made that he just couldn't recruit the quarterback that he wanted to be a little bit more of an open spread type offense. Does that make sense?
Right, that does make sense.
So, it's funny. I remember Mike Leach. Mike Leach is everybody loves hearing his press conferences. It's always entertaining. And he had made that comment. He's like, man, if I could get one of those dual threat, killer athletes up here at Washington State and just watch out and see what we do offensively. You know what I mean?
Right.
But he never had that. So, you run a different offense. So it'll be interesting. I think when you have an explosive player like Emory, the kind of guy who can really change the face of that program, maybe, he's a freshman, so we'll see what his plan is, and he's already down there early enrolled, so he's already at work, and we'll see how quickly he develops and can be ready to play. But he's the type of guy, that can change, the face of that Florida program at the quarterback position. And if that's the case, then I think you'll see Coach Mullen react to that as well. But like I said, back to the way these guys have worked and trained, I mean, regardless of what offense they were in high school, they were all training under center. You know, that whole Elite 11 experience, every snap is from under center. You know, it's all 5-step drops and throwing on time. And, you know, so these guys have understood the importance of making themselves well-rounded enough so regardless of what system they end up playing in at the next level, they have a chance to be successful.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say that it's not going to be the type of demo and offense that we're used to, with a guy that right now is at 196, and granted that will change once he takes his first snap at college, do you take away a lot of the runs up the middle? Because that was what Dak Prescott and Tim Tebow were known for in those type of systems, that they would kill you running up the middle. Is he more of a speed option type of guy?
Yeah, I would see him more on the edge. You know, I think he's definitely more of a zone read or a little, you know, whether they run option or not, some kind of speed look off the edge. Where he's most dangerous, quite honestly, is, you know, making plays when things break down in the pass game. You know, he's just such a superior athlete that, you know, 3rd and 7 now all of a sudden turns into a run play because he gets some pressure and gets out on the edge and can make a play with his feet. So, you know, I don't know. It'll be interesting. Like, you know, once, you know, Coach Mullen gets to really see what he has. So that's it, right? All he knows of Emory Jones is that he, like, what he saw in his high school game film.
Right.
You know, now he sees them. Now he sees what he can really do. And then they find, like I said, the best way to maximize his talent. So it'll be interesting to see. It's not that I don't think he can run inside. I just think that's not really, with the exception of, you know, the Tim Tebows and the, you know, Dak Prescotts or, you know, some of those Fitzgerald, some of the guys they've had. I don't think that's really the recipe for, you know, how to take care of your really good athletic quarterback. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I know going up against like an Alabama or Georgia type defense, if you want to run up the middle, they will destroy your world pretty much.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's exactly right. So, you know, there's no easy sledding in the SEC as we've seen over the last couple of years, and so yeah, I think you want to limit that regardless of how big and strong and physical your kid is. But for a kid like Emory, I mean, like I said, you want to give him some space to work. I think that's where he's most dangerous.
Yeah, now I want to talk about Jaron Williams.
Yeah.
Because this was really a surprise that he signed with Miami, because Miami is one of those offenses with Mark Richt, and I love Mark Richt to death as a person, but I feel like his offense is 20 years in the past, so to speak, because it's a lot of under center, it's a lot of 3-5-step drop throws that you have to make. And Jaron Williams, I've seen him in person at 7-on-7 tournaments, and all he was running in high school was out of the shotgun, pretty much a lot of empty 5-receiver sets, and that has to be a big uphill climb for Jared.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a change, right? So, but in reality, it always is. You know, even if he goes to a team that runs spread, I mean, verbiage is going to be different, formations are going to be different, tendencies and protections that the college system is running is going to be different than what he was used to in high school. So it's always going to be different. You know, what I think Jaron, you know, where he sets himself up well is his adaptability. I've seen him a lot in the off season, and obviously he was doing what Central Gwinnett needed him to do to be the most successful they could be for that offense. But that's a kid that I saw a ton of at a couple of Elite 11 regionals, and saw him at the Rivals camp in Atlanta this year, and following him through that Elite 11 journey. He was as impressive as any quarterback I saw this entire off season. You know, I talked to a few Division I coaches that were looking at him and part of his recruiting process, and he was the kid that kept jumping out at him. Obviously, you know, Trevor and Justin were Trevor and Justin. But Jaron was the one that was really catching a lot of people's eyes, and mine included, because you could tell he was just so well developed, really good understanding of how to control his body and generate good power, and was really consistently accurate throwing the football. He's still a under the radar guy for a lot of the country. And then it goes back to the point about the offense. Mark Richt never had that, explosive, athletic type quarterback when he was there at Georgia, right? It's like we're talking about this with Kirby Smart. They've had a lot of success with the type of quarterback they've had at Georgia, and Justin Fields is going to be coming in, and if you want to maximize his talents, you're probably going to adapt your offense a little bit. And once again, just like we were talking about with Emory, I wouldn't be surprised to see Mark Richt do that as well at Miami.
So you think you would see a lot more direct snap, option read type
I don't know, because it's not like, I think Jaren's athletic. He's not, I don't know his statistic wise, but he doesn't strike me as a kid who runs like a 4.4 or anything like that, right? So it's not about, keep getting the ball in his hands and having him run a lot. But maybe get him in the shotgun, get him in the spread a little bit, maybe help him see the field a little better. If I'm coaching and I'm an offensive coordinator, then the number one thing I care about, of course, is how can I score the most points every game? And usually what comes hand in hand with that is how comfortable can I make my quarterback? Because if he's the one the whole offense is running through him, and he's going to be making a lot of decisions and reads on the field, putting ourselves in the best situation, then whatever works best for him is what, I need to probably adapt to a little bit. Now, if Mark Richt has another quarterback who fits the system he's comfortable with and that works for him and Jaren doesn't, then you could see him going with the other quarterback too. But, if what I expect to happen, in the next year or two is they realize that Jaren is, this is the best kid that we have here at that position, then, I think you start to adapt your offense a little bit towards what makes them most successful.
Gotcha. Now I know that you do a lot of regional training, not just inside the state of Georgia, but around the Southeast. And are there any guys that you know of through coaches circles or just training camps that you've been through that you've been really impressed outside of the state of Georgia?
Good question. Give me a second. I'm trying to think of some guys that caught, not many out of that 2018 class, to be quite honest with you. I'm talking about guys that I think are can't miss guys. Obviously, we can go through the whole roster of the final Elite 11 guys. But all along that process, the guys that I saw the most, and that's where I feel most comfortable talking about, are the guys that were more local to this area that I saw, doing private training or group training and got to work with some of those guys a little bit, or I saw them at camps that I worked. There's a couple names out there. I wouldn't know enough about them outside of just seeing them a little bit at Elite 11 to really guess too much at what their success might be down the road. But it'll be interesting because this is the way everyone talks about when you hear this line is that all the stars and the ratings and all that stuff just kind of ends right now. Because once you go to college, you're starting over. Right. And you could have been the greatest player in, your state history, but now you're just like the fourth or fifth quarterback on the depth chart coming in as a true freshman, and you're kind of starting all over again. So regardless of who I think maybe looks good now or who doesn't, it's really going to be who can adapt to being a college football player, who can get involved in their team's offense and, change the way they prepare each week on watching film and breaking down. And because that's a whole different ballgame than anything they've done before. And you see a lot of times guys that maybe were the best player coming out of high school don't succeed at that level. And then other guys that really adapt well can make a name for themselves early.
Gotcha. Do you think the Georgia quarterback class this year is kind of like the class of quarterbacks that you saw in Texas back in 2006 when you had guys like Matthew Stafford and Colt McCoy and I don't want to say Blaine Gabbert, but I'm totally blanking on this other guy's name. But yeah, you had elite quarterbacks like that who made a lot of noise in college. Do you feel like this quarterback class compares to that one?
I mean, I definitely think they can. I mean, I think it wouldn't be shocking, to see all of these guys be on the field and start in the next year or two, right? So, I'm not predicting that Justin Fields is going to take Jake Fromm's spot next year, that Trevor Lawrence is going to compete right away at Clemson, but they're guys that I expect to be in the mix almost immediately. I'd be shocked if they're not, at least two on the depth chart at those respective schools. And then, throw Henry in that mix, throw Jaron Williams in that mix. A couple other local, guys that are going to end up having some, maybe not Power 5 opportunities, but guys in this area in Georgia are going to go to some of the Group of 5 schools and have a chance to compete and be early on. Like I said, I wouldn't be shocked. And then, even throwbacks, guys from last year's class. I wouldn't be shocked if you see, 7, 8 quarterbacks starting around the country in the next year or two.
Yeah. Then a small window that goes on to the NFL. Yeah, that'll probably be crazy in like 5 years to see how all this develops. But you brought up a point a little bit earlier when you talked about that you're pretty much just starting over, and since you had one of your guys go to Auburn and was on the big SEC stage and had a legitimate shot to compete for a starting job at Auburn this past year. I just want to know, Sean, what was your advice that you gave to him when he was starting this new journey?
Yeah, probably way more important than the advice he got from me were the other people in his circle. Coach John Ford, was at Roswell and now at Buford. Obviously, Coach a lot has a better perspective of, what it takes to succeed at that next level. He was very fortunate to be surrounded by a good group of other really superior, Division I type athletes who came out of this area. There's a company I'm associated with called I Dare You, and we do training based out of Atlanta, and it's kind of been, especially at like the defensive back position, has kind of just been churning out, 10 to 12 Division I guys every year. And Malik always trained along those guys. And so, you end up having this support system that has been there, has gone through it, kind of knows what to expect and can really advise pretty well. So I think it was really the whole support system more than it was me. For my little part, it was just having him, trust all the work he's been putting in. So everything that made him succeed his senior year at Roswell, all the work he put in to throw better and be more consistently accurate and trust what his body was telling him as far as feel and changes he needed to make to be most successful from a quarterback, standpoint. It was just that, hey, at the end of the day, while a lot of this changes, those things don't. So all the things that you continue to work on and things that are important in establishing good footwork and good drops and making good decisions and reading through defenses, and that all part of it stays the same, and just kind of trust in the work you put in, continue to develop that. But at the end of the day, you're still just playing football. I think that was more the message that I tried to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Now the Super Bowl is next Sunday, and it's pretty interesting. And I guess this is kind of where the NFL is right now. That that you have on one side with the New England Patriots, you have a premier quarterback in Tom Brady, who's a household name, and then you have Nick Foles, who is not a household name, but still Eagles fans still seem to really love him. And but I guess first of all, I just want to ask you, Sean, since you're from the Philadelphia area, are you an Eagles fan, or is the people that you know from your hometown, are they really excited about the Super Bowl?
Yeah, so that's it. This is where my friends and family hate me because I obviously am an Eagles fan. I grew up there,
right.
Moved a little bit, but 30 years of my life I lived in the Philadelphia area, so you can't help but be absorbed by it.
Right.
I became a Chicago Bears fan somehow when I was in first grade, and so my allegiance always goes to the Bears. So if you're asking me that question, to be fair, I have to say I'm a Bears fan. But yeah, obviously all my friends and family, my parents were at the NFC Championship game last week.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
So my sisters goes to 5 or 6 games a year. So yeah, it's always been a part of my family, and certainly all my friends are all fired up. So I'll certainly be rooting for the Eagles on Sunday.
That's cool. With a guy like Tom Brady, because he's accomplished everything you can accomplish as a quarterback. I joked with you last time that what would you do if you got a call from Matt Ryan, but I just don't know from a coaching standpoint, where's the motivation to, or where's the emphasis on trying to make him better, because you can pretty much relax on your laws, and it also too, I've heard from people that are around him that he's self-motivated. So how do you put a guy that's self-motivated in the best position?
So that's it, is that he does it himself, right? They just launched, they're doing like a little documentary series on Facebook called Tom versus Time. And it follows him as he's preparing into this season. And the first episode, literally finding on Facebook, I just watched it 2 hours ago. It's phenomenal. Where he explores a lot of those things. What's his motivation, after already winning 5 Super Bowls, to come back at 40 years old and keep playing, and there was a really cool clip where they were showing some of the broadcasters out there on ESPN or wherever, saying, he's going to get worse this year. He's 40. Because the way athletes work, they start to deteriorate. And he just kind of said, I don't really listen to any of that stuff. He's like, I don't need outside motivation. I motivate myself enough, or something along those lines. It's just a really cool, poignant point to hear him say. But, that's a guy who's figured out, with the help of guys like Tom House and, like I said last week, there's guys that have been training a lot of the top quarterbacks now, including Matt Ryan. And, obviously that Alex Guerrero is, health body specialist, guy that he works with. He's just figured out how to be, maximize his potential, just play at the highest level. And that includes everything from how he takes care of his body, but then also to making necessary changes in his footwork or in his, core stability to generate better power, or changing some things with his arm. He has this great ability to feel what he needs to do and smart enough to be able to make those changes. So no, listen, I think Tom Brady's the best, without a doubt, quarterback who's ever played. There's obviously a few out there who play at an extremely high level, and we're kind of blessed to get to see them kind of in this generation right now. If we're people of our age, we're really lucky with what we get to see every Sunday. But I think Tom Brady is certainly the best. But it's because of that ability to motivate himself and then make the changes necessary to continue to be successful.
What do you feel like is one of the intangibles that he has that he takes on the field? outside of the self-motivation?
Well, it's the experience now. You know what I mean? I think early on it was his, athletic ability and his, his ability to make those changes. I think he was slightly ahead of other people that play the position in terms of what was important for him to generate good power and be accurate with his throwing motion. But now it's the experience. That's like I said, I just watched that documentary. He made a clip, he had a quick point where he said, I'm 18 years in the league. The amount of snaps I've taken in practices and games, the amount of film I've watched, he's like, I should be perfect now. Like, that's where his head is. He's like, no, you can't have prepared more than I have. There's no reason for him not to be absolutely perfect. And I think that's kind of what he holds himself to. And then, if he doesn't feel like he achieved that, that's just extra motivation for him to prepare that much harder and work that much harder going forward. But I don't think there's a look that a defense is going to show him on any given down that he isn't completely comfortable with, knows exactly how to attack it, and then physically, obviously, is able to execute.
Mm-hmm. Now I want to go to the other side with Nick Foles. What is it about him that makes him so successful? Because when he was his last stint with the Eagles, he was just a stat machine.
Yeah, it's a funny story. Like, Nick's a weird one to figure out. I mean, he kind of caught lightning in a bottle like 2 different times.
Right.
So, we had that pretty good year, 2014, I think it was, and took them, once again, because of injury, took them on a playoff run and played an extremely high level, and then obviously got traded, and, the story, and him and Case Keenum together with the Rams and Jeff Fisher and all that. We've talked about this before on previous podcasts about how important it is to, have a good coach and a good offensive coordinator and a good system that works, and that's so much more instrumental, I think, in a quarterback's success than maybe we feel it is. That's why you see so many quarterbacks and where they get drafted to can be the difference maker in whether they're successful or not. So everybody was ready to write off Case Keenum and Nick Foles and Jared Goff, right? All those guys that, had to work through that. And now you're seeing when they're around really good coaches and really good coordinators and really good, teams and systems around them that they're playing at a high level. So I think really a lot of the credit has to go to what, Doug Peterson's doing there, as the head coach there of Philadelphia, and the way that team kind of complements each other. They're obviously driven and motivated. They had arguably one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, and Carson Wentz certainly was playing at an MVP type level this year. He gets hurt, and I'm not sure that doesn't completely demolish most programs, right? Most teams. That's it. It's season's over. So but Nick Foles steps in, and, the team rallied around them, and they're playing now at a level. I mean, I don't know that anybody played a game as good as the Eagles did last Sunday against Minnesota. I mean, they're unbeatable if their defense plays like that, and Nick Foles just made play after play after play. Now, going into the Super Bowl, Nick Foles is just as likely to throw 4 interceptions as he was to throw 4 touchdowns, in my opinion, right? So that what he hasn't shown, in comparison to Tom Brady, is the ability to consistently, play at that high level. So it'll be interesting, but, he doesn't need to. All he's got to do is figure out a way to play one more really good game.
Interesting. Before we end this thing, I want to ask you, because we're all about underdogs here at Fan Favorite Fan, I want to ask you about a guy that you coach who had some struggles recently with getting recruited. I just want to know, what's Cordell Littlejohn's status right now? With recruiting?
I really appreciate you asking. There's going to be really, really big, exciting news for Cordell. I just aren't privy to say it yet.
Okay.
So by this weekend, you'll know what I know. But to be fair to him and the recruiting process, I'll hold off until it's made official. But yeah, Cordell, really came in with the mindset of playing, obviously at the next level and playing, making the necessary changes to succeed at the next level right away. And was lucky enough to come in, got to work with him for a year plus while he was at Roswell training, changing his throwing motion a little bit, making those little corrections. But that kid's driven, man. It just didn't work out the way he thought it would this year.
Right.
But just kept really positive through the process. And, I told you, I think on the first time we talked about, the whole process stinks, right? It's full of kind of lies and manipulation and, everything else, but that's just the way it goes. So to his credit, probably more so than maybe me,
right?
He didn't let it frustrate him, and he stayed really solid through it all. And now I'm telling you, when you hear what's going down, I'm not sure he could have found a better opportunity. He's going to really have an opportunity to play right away, and maybe at one of the most exciting and smart coaching staffs in the country. So I'm really excited for him.
I know you can't give us the exact schools, but could you just tell us, because it's kind of one of those things, if there's smoke, there's fire. What are the schools that were interested in him?
Yeah, I mean, there weren't many. There were a ton in the summer and, in September, at the point where he had committed to Illinois. And then there weren't many for a while, and then things really started to heat up over the last week. But I'm sorry, man, I'm killing you. I'm gonna not name the 3 or 4 that came in late. That would narrow it down a little bit too much. But he was at the point where he just wanted an opportunity, and if that meant he had to go another year and develop, I mean, he was considering maybe doing junior college if that made the most sense, to get another year to show everybody with better film what he actually is capable of doing. But over the last week, there've been, 6 or 8 schools down there and wanted to see him throw live and, pretty much saw him throw and was ready to offer on the spot. So, things happened really quickly for him over the last, 7 to 10 days. But, I literally just talked to his dad earlier today, and we're all fired up, and so we'll hold off until he officially announces this weekend. So,
well, there you go. Kept to the politically correct. So I guess if you're interested into the story, follow Cordell Littlejohn's Twitter account.
There you go. Yeah, you might. I'm trying to think what he's put out so far. You might be able to sniff around his social media and figure it out on your own, but
yeah,
it won't be coming from me.
Okay, I understand. I give you a chance to list a couple of schools, but I got you. Well, cool. It was great having you on, Sean, and really appreciate the time that you've been on our shows. What's a great way for people to get in touch with you if they want to, if they have questions about this conversation that we had today?
Yeah, I mean, really anything, comment back, through your website or on Fan's Favorite Fan, or drop a comment on whatever you're listening to this podcast on. But if you want to find me directly, then Twitter is great. I'm at QB Coach McEvoy on Twitter.
Well, great. Appreciate the time today, Sean.
Absolutely, Alex. We'll do it soon.
I just again want to thank Sean McEvoy for being on the show today. Always enjoy him on the show, getting to pick his brain about the quarterback position. Now, we are like I said before, we are a podcast on fansfavoritefan.com, and you can see the podcast through multiple media sources on the internet. We are on SoundCloud, we are on YouTube, and you can also get the show on fansfavoritefan.com. Also, too, if you like the Fan Show, if you like our fresh perspective that we're giving to sports in the podcasting world, then we definitely need your help if you're willing to help support the Fan the fan show and the financial goings on with the fan show, because we have a GoFundMe page set up. I'm going to put that in the show description, so be sure to check that out. We definitely would appreciate all the help that we can get. Also, too, the best way to be a part of the conversation, to be a part of the show, is in the comment section. And just type in your comment below if you think Jalen Hurts is going to come to Georgia Tech, or if you're curious about the different quarterback prospects that the state of Georgia has. Be sure to put that in the comment section, and we will get back to you. If you put something in the comment section, we will respond. That is a promise here on Fans Favorite Fan. Also, too, you can tweet at me at Alexander71004, and I will get back to you if you have any questions about the show. And hey, if you make comments about the show, I might read them on air. So if you want your tweets to be read on air, just holler at me at Twitter. I'm going to put that in the show description as well. If you liked this show, be sure to hit that like button, because that like button goes further and faster than I think a lot of people realize who just casually are on the internet. So be sure to hit that like button. Definitely appreciate you guys listening. Love the audience, love the YouTube audience, love the long-time listeners to the fan show. Love you guys a lot, and I hope you guys have an amazing day.